Hello dear, Rose here, writer, director, etc. of this podcast audio drama, welcoming you to the third season of the Wessex dramas, The Laodicean. This novel was the last of Thomas Hardy's Novels of Ingenuity trilogy. The story is a gentle romantic comedy set in a rather indecisive heiress's castle. I must warn you, Victorian intrigue, cross-purposes and architecture feature rather heavily in this tale. So throw on a tea gown, put your toes on the fender and tell the butler you are not at home, and let's dive into the drama.
Somerset and Paula are walking down a long path. Paula has her parasol and her small dog is walking with them.
Oh, that's good then. As once you have finished these small details, you can begin the work.
They come across a young, somewhat more neatly dressed artisan instructing two elderly electrical workers in peasant costume about how to effect the electrical works.
And don't you forget that them's cablings have to keep their jackets on, or the electric escapes, and you don't want that know-how.
There ain't no reason for the bally us, sir. We know as that electric has got to be kept warm, like.
Don't faddle them tight together either.
No, sir.
The artisan looks up and sees his employer approaching. He smiles, tips his cap and hurries off the other way. The two workers don't see Paula and Somerset approaching as they are too preoccupied.
You'd think as though I gallywig them cables a purpose.
It's no use making a fan, Todd. He's the dabster.
Aye, but he's so tilty with me as he just asked me, oh, joppity.
His colleague shrugs. They walk off. Somerset and Paula, who have paused in their walk so as not to invade these workers' conversation, smile and continue their walk as the workers go off down another path.
Did you stay long after we left?
Only long enough to read about your play.
It's not fully agreed yet, but I shall only play the princess if Mr. Mild plays the King of Navarre.
Why? Why you play at all?
My father always supported the hospital.
Somerset takes her hand and squeezes it.
We're not engaged, Paula.
Paula gently disengages her hand and shakes her head.
Come, just let me tell your aunt.
No, not yet. I have to...
She looks up as her aunt appears on the path ahead.
Oh, look, there she is. I wonder if she has any news of Charlotte. I'll see you later, Mr. Somerset.
She hurries away in a cloud of organza, together with her dog. The room is dimly lit, and the audience for Love's Labours Lost is largely assembled when Somerset comes in and looks about him for a place. He espies Mrs. Goodman, who gestures to him to join her in his reserved seat next to her. Somerset goes to join her, and as he sits, the curtain opens and the King of Navarre stalks on and starts declaiming. It is Distancy. Somerset is shocked and turns to Paula's aunt.
I thought that Mr. Mild was to have been the king.
He was, but he got the nerves.
Does Miss Power know of this change?
I think she's only just found out.
Paula comes onto the stage, in costume.
Fair princess, welcome to the court of Navarre.
Fair? I give you back again and welcome. I have not yet.
She strolls about the stage in a somewhat detached manner, while the king talks to her, with her occasionally answering and nodding her head. He gets out a beautiful diamond necklace from a box on a table, and asks to put it on her, which she allows, drawing near. He fastens the necklace on her, stands back to admire, and exclaims at her beauty, bowing low. Paula nods her head in mild exasperation and turns to walk away a little. Distancy grabs her hand to prevent her moving and declaims,
Oh then, dear saint, let lips do what hands do. They pray, grant thou, lest faith turn to despair. Then move not while my prayers effect I take. Thus from my lips, by yours, my sin is purged.
Distancy bends over her and she leans back a little, hidden from sight. There is a long, rude kissing sound from someone in the audience, followed by applause, whistling and catcalls. Distancy stands up again and Paula rights herself, adjusting her hair and looking very blushing and embarrassed. A serving maid enters onto the stage with a message, and the play continues. There is a large, weather-beaten but smartly dressed man in his early 60s, Mr. Abner Power, leaning against the panelling near to the back door, next to the landlord at Sleeping Green. Power turns to the landlord.
Who's the king?
Oh, it's Captain de Stancy, sir. William de Stacey's son. He used to own this property.
Baronet or knight?
Baronet, but lost most everything now.
So if she has money, and him the name and blood, it would make a pretty match between them, eh?
That's what the Laodicean say upon the chimney, sir.
Power smiles.
They do they?
He nods his departure, turns, and leaves as the final clapping starts. The door of an anteroom is open, and as Somerset hurries past, he sees Paula removing her tiara and putting it onto a table through the wide open door. Somerset steps timidly into the threshold.
Miss Power?
She looks up, sees him.
Congratulations on your performance.
She comes up to him with a social air.
You thought it well done?
It was startlingly done. Especially the part with Romeo's speeches to Juliet thrown in. To your love's labours lost.
Yes. Silly man. I'd no idea he was going to do that.
So he kissed you?
Paula moves away and waves her hand airily.
Only the air before my face.
So will you let me then?
Paula smiles.
Well, the air, but not my face.
Somerset turns away somewhat. He is in despair.
How can you be so offhand? I love you wildly and desperately, Paula, and you know it well.
I have never denied knowing it.
But you're going to let him do that again in tomorrow's performance?
Paula smiles.
No. I shall sort something out. Look, come tomorrow morning and I will have a chat with you in the Pleasance. As long as you promise not to badger me about, you know.
Yes, I will. I mean, I won't.
Paula, are you there?
Paula bundles him out of a small back door in the chamber which enters upon the turret, and as he descends the stairs she calls.
Tomorrow.
Yes, my love.
She smiles and closes the door at the top of the stairs. Somerset wanders, in love and dreamily preoccupied, along the path. He accidentally tramps through the knot garden hedging. He trips and looks where he is. That is, in the middle of a knot garden bed. He looks guiltily around and steps back onto the footpath. Paula is using the telegraph, sitting at the table near the window. She writes down the message from the chattering telegraph.
Miss Barbara Bell of the Regent's Theatre could come. Quite competent. Terms will be 25 guineas.
Paula reads and then thinks for a minute. She then writes,
Terms are satisfactory. Please send.
Paula then taps out this message and gets up and paces the room, looking out of the window. A minute later, the telegraph chatters back. Paula sits down, writes out and then reads the message.
Miss Bell starts by the 12 o'clock train.
She smiles, nods, gets up and goes to look out of the window. Paula sees Somerset walking down below in the garden, so she turns and leaves. Is Somerset, who is pacing. He looks up and smiles.
Good morning. Do you wish to consult with me, Miss Power?
About the building, perhaps, but not about the play.
Somerset's face falls, and he merely bows. They turn and walk along the path around this pleasance.
You mistake me, as usual. I am not acting tonight.
Oh, forgive my momentary doubt, my love.
I've engaged a London actress, but you mustn't tell Captain Stancy.
Or he won't play his part.
Paula smiles.
We can assume so. Now, you must play my confederate and meet Miss Bell, my replacement actress, off the 4 o'clock train. See her straight into the carriage and don't let her be seen in the town. Could you have a word with Beeves now, please, about the carriage?
Somerset bows and smiles.
Yours to command, my lady.
He turns and walks smartly out of the garden. As he approached the gateway, an older, weather-beaten man, Mr. Power, pushes himself off the gateway jamb from where he has been regarding Somerset and Paula and walks past Somerset. As he walks past, Mr. Power closely scrutinises Somerset rudely. As Somerset goes out of the gateway, he sees this, to him, unknown man talking earnestly with Paula. The stage is being dismantled by a couple of labourers. Paula is talking animatedly with her aunt Charlotte, the elderly strange gentleman Mr. Power, a couple of actors, and Captain Distancy. They are variously either in costume or in evening clothes. Somerset, also in evening clothes, makes his way hesitantly from his seat back in the seating area. The audience is now largely departed, with the remaining few just collecting and donning their wraps, etc. Paula turns towards Somerset, smiles, and indicates Mr. Power.
Mr. Somerset, please let me present my uncle, Mr. Abe Power. He has been supposed dead for nearly 10 years now, by all of us.
Mr. Power nods slightly, with a sour face, and looks from Distancy to Somerset, comparing them.
Yes, but that was because of my long illness and my fancied neglect of my letters.
For which my father was not to blame, as he didn't receive them.
No, my dear, not his fault.
I suppose that you have great pleasure in returning at last, sir.
Power shrugs.
Not bothered either way. Now I'm back, though. I just want to see my niece happy and settled.
I hope you find her the former, sir.
Power completely turns his back on Somerset and half throws his answer back over his shoulder.
Yes, but I think that she needs more company and amusement to keep her cheerful.
Power then starts a lively conversation with Distancy. Paula is laughing with several of the actors, and so Somerset, after regarding the back of Power for a while, and then vainly attempting to gain the attention of Paula, gives up and walks away. Somerset is sitting at his desk with several of his masters, carpenters, plasterers, plumbers, etc. standing around him. He is pointing and explaining his drawings to them. Somerset is out on the leads, explaining and pointing to part of the parapet to the mason, when he sees Paula, together with her uncle and Distancy, getting into the carriage below. Somerset comes into the gallery with plans in his hand, and he sees Paula laughing with Distancy and her uncle and walking out at the other end of the gallery. He starts to call to them, but they've gone. Somerset is poring over a plan in an anteroom when Mrs. Goodman walks through with a couple of books in her hand. She asks after him, smiles, and pats him on the shoulder in encouragement. She leaves, and Somerset stares anxiously after her. Somerset is sitting, looking out of the window, musing. There is a knock, and the innkeeper's maid enters, carrying a tray with a couple of newspapers on it. She gives a nod of her head and puts the tray on Somerset's table nearby. She wipes the papers down a bit with the edge of her apron.
The pony carriage for the castle will be around in a moment, sir, and your papers be here for you. Sorry them's a bit blatch.
Thank you.
She nods and goes out. Somerset leans forward, languorously reaches out, and reads a big article on the front page.
We are reliably informed that a marriage is likely to be arranged between Captain Distancy, only surviving son of William Distancy, Baronet, and Paula, only daughter of the late John Power, Esquire, MP, of Stancy Castle.
Somerset, open-mouthed with horror, drops the paper back on the table and falls back into his chair.
Oh, what? Distancy? Distancy?
He looks agonizedly around. Somerset gives instructions to various master workers, and they set out to work on their various portions of the castle. Somerset gazes glassily at his latest sketches lying loose on his desk. He suddenly sweeps them away, gets up and leaves that portion of his office, stepping through the open archway into an ante-corridor. Somerset paces furiously up and down. He suddenly hears footsteps and looks up to see Paula coming towards him. She's brandishing a newspaper and stops in front of him. Somerset stops.
Good morning, Mr. Somerset.
Low.
Paula hands him a folded section of her paper, pointing to a spot.
Read.
She herself then proceeds to pace angrily up and down the immediate small corridor. Somerset reads and then looks up at her, a little hopeful.
You're not marrying him, then?
Of course not. That's why I had that wicked lie countered in the following edition.
Who on earth had it put in?
Paula shrugs.
No idea, the idiot.
Somerset smiles.
So there's still a chance that you might be mine?
Paula comes to a halt near to him and gives a depreciating smile.
Well, not immediately.
Why? Have you changed?
My uncle wishes my aunt and I to go to Nice with him for the spring, while you make all of your messes here.
Your uncle?
Yes. I'll probably take Charlotte as well.
Somerset looks down disappointedly.
Oh.
You don't begrudge me a little pleasure just because you won't be there now, do you?
Oh, no. Of course not. Does your uncle guess anything about us? Do you wish him to be told yet?
Yes to the first, and no to the second.
Can't I even write?
Now, George, you see I use your Christian name. You may find that you have to telegraph me or write on business, and you may perhaps find you may want to add the odd personal postscript of some sort.
She smiles impishly and hands him a slip of paper.
This will be our address.
She starts to turn about to withdraw.
When do you leave?
The day after tomorrow.
The day after?
She starts to walk away and just turns her head back to him, smilingly.
Courage, mon brave.
She is gone around the corner.
Goodbye, my dearest.
2 carriages are drawn up outside of the main door, and Uncle Abe is giving instructions to the maids, footmen and valet who are accompanying the party to Nice. The servants are carrying out the luggage, and Charlotte is anxiously discussing something with Mrs. Goodman. Somerset comes out of a side door and addresses Paula, who is standing there, watching the activities, serenely beautiful in her spring pastel costume.
Will you write soon?
Uncle Abe comes towards Paula and looks suspiciously at Somerset.
Be true to me.
Somerset turns quickly away and addresses Mrs. Goodman, who nods, smiles, and pats him on the shoulder. The party streams down the steps and enters the 2 carriages for servants and masters. There is a postilion and carriageman for each carriage. Somerset manages to get in front of Uncle Abe to be able to hand Paula into her carriage, as well as Charlotte. Abe hands in Mrs. Goodman and then also enters the carriage himself. The women all wave and shout adieu. Somerset walks back up the steps and waves again as the carriages disappear around the sweep and through the gates. Somerset looks after the carriages and sighs. Mr. Woodwell is sitting near the fire and drinking some tea with Somerset.
Yes, it really is very kind of you to come. I wish to sort out some charity affair of Miss Power's father, but now they've gone. I went to the station but couldn't get near to her. She was being monopolised by a gentleman.
A gentleman?
Yes, that Captain de Stancy. I fear that the Anglican influence is becoming strong over a certain member of our Baptist congregation. Could you perhaps give me her address in Nice, please, Mr. Somerset, and I'll write to her there, in France, about the charity?
Yes, I'll send it over.
Of course, the Anglican influence will be complete when the captain marries Miss Power.
Miss Power flatly contradicted that in the newspaper, Mr. Woodwell.
We shall all know in the Lord's good time.
He indicates towards the nearby tea tray.
More tea?
Somerset shakes his head sadly. Somerset is standing talking with an editor who is standing behind the high counter.
Yes, but why did your reporter write that article about Miss Power?
Apparently he shared a flyback from the performance with the man who told him about the likelihood of marriage.
What did this man look like?
Ooh, late middle-aged, with a very weather-beaten, cracked and lined face. And a big beard.
Power. Thank you.
Somerset nods and heads to the door.
First this and now taking her away. So that's what he thinks of me.
He sighs.
That was an episode of The Laodicean. I would like to thank the amazing cast for this episode. Caro Joy, Catherine Dyer, Neal Highley, John Simpson, Tony Lee, Scott Monroe, James Heseltine, Jonty O'Callaghan, Jenny Dyer, Stephan, John Seal, Peter Allison, Robin Lee, and Tracy Hays. I would also like to thank our brilliant, patient, and multi-talented editor, David Harris, for all of his hard work and patience on this. The music is from Epidemic Sound and is The English Affair by Howard Harper-Barnes. Anyways, see you next time, gentlefolk.